The initial design had no bows. They were used in the first round of filming when Richard Thorpe was directing. Then, in October 1938, Thorpe was fired. Victor Fleming replaced him, and they started over. Among many changes, Dorothy got a makeover, including a new hairdo and a new style of magic shoes. Given the extra time, Adrian designed a wild-looking pair of slippers, almost elfish, curling at the heel and toe. They came to be known as the Arabian Test Pair.
They truly are unique, with the toe coming up and the little flap, a little low heel. These are my favorites. I know that Judy wore them. I know that she liked them best of all, by the way. She said, I want the ones with the pointed toe.
But the Arabian pair looked strange on plain Dorothy's feet, so Adrian simply added jeweled bows to the first style. This became the final ruby slipper design, and doubles were ordered for Judy Garland and her stand-in. The foundation was a basic French-heeled pump, purchased from the Innis Shoe Company in Hollywood, California. The sequined overlays and bows were made at MGM. Each overlay had 2,300 sequins, and each bow had dozens of rhinestones and bugle beads. In 1938, they cost about $13 a pair. During production, orange felt was added to the soles of the shoes to muffle the noise made during the dance numbers. This was because MGM's Yellow Brick Road was actually made of plywood. Only one pair was kept without the felt, the pair used for close-up shots. In time, this would become an important distinction to collectors. When production finished, the shoes, along with all the other unique costumes, were packed up and put in MGM's form of deep storage. For all practical purposes, they were put away for 30 years, left to rot. Nobody at MGM knew or cared, and so began the legend of the missing ruby slippers. Treasure will continue in a moment here on A&E. We now return to Treasure here on A&E. "1970 was a peculiar year in Hollywood history. The original movie moguls were fading from the scene, being replaced by men from Wall Street. At Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, it wasn't just a corporate takeover, it was a raid. That year, the entire studio was sold to a reclusive financier named Kirk Kerkorian. He immediately cashed out, selling studio property to finance a new casino in Las Vegas. The wholesale liquidation was highlighted by a lucrative land sale, which included MGM's storied back lots, studio lots 2, 3, 4, and 5. The land was worth a fortune, but the contents of the land, the physical property stored on the back lots, was seriously undervalued. This was MGM's closet. To Louis B. Mayer, it was the world's largest movie-making warehouse, a veritable treasure chest of antiques, artwork, machinery, and costumes. But to Wall Street, it was nothing but a burden of storage and maintenance. It was junk. Kerkorian could have kept some of the historic memorabilia to display in his casino, but instead, he sold everything to an auctioneer named David Weiss for a mere $1.5 million. A single pair of ruby slippers is worth that today. David Weiss bought an unbelievable assortment of Hollywood treasures, from Ben-Hur's chariots and the HMS Bounty to Clark Gable's coats and Greta Garbo's gowns. There were cars, trains, airplanes, tanks, and the full-sized paddle wheeler from Showboat. Costumes alone filled 7 buildings, over 350,000 separate items. The auctioneer was overwhelmed by the sheer volume of material, but he recognized the celebrity value connected to some of the items. So he decided to hold a glamorous, well-publicized star auction. Afterwards, he presided over the largest and saddest garage sale Hollywood has ever known.
It was so sad, and it was so ridiculous, and so narrow-minded, and just stupid is the word. And I've never forgotten it, and I've never gotten over it, and I'm even still angry about it.
The MGM auction of May 1970 was like an 18-day wait for Hollywood.
I sobbed every day uncontrollably. I was like this having a breakdown person. People just would look and go, well, what is the matter with her?
The auction officially began on May 1st and culminated with the Star Wardrobe sale on May 17th. It was a magnificent production in itself. Debbie Reynolds was there for every minute of it, checkbook in hand. Her goal was to preserve as much of Hollywood's history as she could before the studio threw it all away.
I was every day at auction for 3 to 4 weeks, as long as it went. I wasn't into buying the rose bushes and all of the lamp posts, and I couldn't really buy the airplanes. I did buy cars, and I did buy sets, which means the furniture from a picture and the costumes, so I could recreate a famous scene from every famous motion picture that had won an Academy Award from MGM.
Reynolds spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to save countless Hollywood treasures. But strangely, she didn't bid a dime for the ruby slippers. In truth, nobody expected much action from the frumpy pair of sequin shoes. But when the gavel came down at $15,000, they became the most valuable memorabilia in Hollywood history. Imagine the surprise of Roberta Bauman, a Memphis housewife, on Monday morning, May 18, 1970. There she was, reading the newspaper in her kitchen, when a story from Culver City, California, caught her eye.
I said, looky here. One pair of shoes brought $15,000 out in Culver City.
The story said the shoes had been auctioned by MGM the day before. Roberta was surprised because she had the ruby slippers in her closet and thought they were the only pair. Within hours, Roberta's story and photograph hit the news wires. There she was, holding her pair of ruby slippers. Suddenly, the press had a mystery to solve. Roberta said she had won them in a movie contest, and she had proof to back it up. In high school, she had belonged to a club, the Photoplay Club, that watched and reviewed movies. The year was 1939, Hollywood's epic year. Roberta was a junior. That winter, members of the Photoplay Club entered a contest.
Metro-Goldwyn Mayer had a promotion, and we were told to send a postcard to New York to vote on the 10 best pictures of 1939.
Roberta voted Gone with the Wind, #1. She can't recall where she placed The Wizard of Oz. Her picks were good enough to win second place in the contest. And her prize? The ruby red slippers. The size 6B shoes were presented to her in the spring of 1940. She was 16 years old, Dorothy's age. For 30 years, Roberta believed she had the only pair of ruby slippers.
I had no idea, and I didn't at that time know how many pairs were out there.
Between 1940 and 1970, Roberta enjoyed sharing her pair of magic shoes with the public. But news of the MGM auction changed everything. For Roberta, it was the first of many gigantic twists along her own yellow brick road. At first, she thought one of the pairs had to be fakes, and she worried that the fakes might be hers. Fearing the worst, she called her old high school teacher, Miss Josephine Allensworth.
I said, you know, Miss Josephine, we weren't told anything about these shoes, and I don't know how many pairs are there, and what should I do? She said, challenge them. She said, go up to the newspaper and tell about it, how you received them in high school. And that's what I did.
But the press found no answers, so she decided to contact MGM directly.
I wrote a letter to Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer in Culver City to ask them to confirm if I had an authentic pair of ruby slippers, because I had told the little children in all the schools all the time I had them that I was told when I received them, when my teacher received them, they had been worn by Judy Garland.
MGM refused Roberta's letter, marking the envelope returned to sender. But the studio could not ignore the controversy, so they referred it to David Weiss. The auctioneer was just as surprised as Mrs. Bauman. In a letter to the anonymous buyer, Weiss said there was only one pair of Garland red shoes in the MGM inventory. But that was not the whole truth. Soon, what was common